Good afternoon and welcome to the weekly webinar series with the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. So glad you joined us today. I'm Janet Flom with the Louisville Center, one of 10 centers throughout the Commonwealth providing service to all 120 counties. So if you're not familiar with the Small Business Development Centers, or SBDCs for short, I'm just going to share a little bit of information about what we do. So we provide assistance to entrepreneurs just like yourself, regardless of what point you are in the life cycle of your business. So if you're just starting out, we can assist with market research and business plan development, even help you find startup capital. If you're an existing business, we can help you grow, whether that's hiring your first employee, or maybe you're looking to expand your operations and need capital to do that. Or maybe you're in a situation you need help with cash flow, or even looking to pivot your business, especially in these times. We have professionals to do that as well. Or maybe you are looking to sell your business, maybe even looking to retire. So we have individuals within our staff that can assist with that. We have a professional staff, has a wide array of knowledge and experience in various industries, and that allows us to provide a more customized service to meet your particular business needs. So we do all this at no cost to you through the U.S. Small Business Administration, who co-sponsors our program. And that program is then administered by the University of Kentucky, and they partner with regional universities, community colleges, and local economic development agencies. We're part of a national network, as you can see on your screen, America's SBDC, located in Kentucky. And what that means is actually there's a small business development center to serve every corner of the U.S. So there's one near, regardless of what county you are in. To learn more about us in particular, the Kentucky Small Business Development Center, you can visit our website at kybizhelp.com. There you'll find additional resources and in the areas to help start, fund, or grow your business. You'll also find all the socials that we're participating in, so you can find your favorite and connect and stay up to date on news, services, and events that are happening. To request personal assistance, you can email us at info@kybizhelp.com, or go ahead and call our hotline at 1-888-475-7232. So a recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you later on this evening. So if you have trouble with the audio, you just need to step away, know that you'll have access to the entire recording. So moderating today's event, my fellow staff members from the Louisville Center, Dave Etkin, our Center Director, and Tony Sears, our Assistant Center Director. I'll let you guys introduce who our guest is today.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Janet.
So today's guest, I'm very excited because I followed HubSpot, the company HubSpot, for a long time. They are a superb resource, and I really wanted to get them involved. And I don't know, I'll be honest, I was quite nervous calling a big successful company like that, but within minutes, Amanda called me back, and here we are. So you know what, HubSpot is really killer as far as doing outbound marketing with content management, content marketing, and blogging. And I've really been a fan. So I'm so happy to speak to Amanda today. You know, you are the type of person that I'm envious of. You know, you are a professional writer. You know, Amanda is a senior staff writer on HubSpot's blogging team. She's an expert in content strategy, search engine optimization, and editorial management. And I'm hoping to learn a lot today because I can write, but man, it takes me a year to do it. So hopefully I can get some tricks and tips from you today. So with that, let's get started, and I'll let you take over.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction. So, you know, as previously stated, I'm representing HubSpot today. Overall, HubSpot is a marketing, service, and sales platform with a ton of different tools that, you know, cover the gamut of online marketing and platform. So it's a great tool. Definitely look into it. Today we are going to be discussing blogging for business. But before I get into that, just, you know, quick few things about myself is that I currently serve on the HubSpot blog team. as the historical optimization writer. And so what that basically means is I go in and I take a look at HubSpot's blog posts and make changes so that existing blog posts can perform even better. And prior to this role, I have several years of marketing agency experience from basically everything inbound marketing, from driving traffic to sales enablement. And, my deep discipline expertise is, as previously stated, in content marketing, specifically in search engine optimization. In fact, I would have to estimate that there are 50,000 pieces of web content online today that I touched in some way, shape, or form, whether it was from the strategy side, or I wrote it, or I edited it, or was involved in the optimization. So been around the neighborhood, when it comes to online marketing and blogging specifically. So what we're going to cover today is why do we blog? Why is it important? And hint there is the buyer's journey, which we will dive into. And then we'll discuss what makes a successful blog post, from the brainstorming to the writing to the optimization of that blog post, so that it can drive traffic and ultimately provide you with return on investment. And, in case anybody is wondering, the slides will be available after the presentation. And after, we discuss everything, there will be a short Q&A. So let's dive into the buyer's journey first. The buyer's journey is defined as a consumer's path to purchase. Basically, the moment that they decide that they have a problem that needs to be solved, until they solve it by making a purchase. But the thing to understand here is that no one just wakes up and decides that they want to spend money. At least I know I don't. I want to avoid spending money where possible. So that's sort of the disconnect between the buyer's journey and outbound sales tactics that are interruptive and intrusive. And so what blogging aims to do is it actually aims to target people who are actively looking for a solution to their problems. So I'm going to talk about the buyer's journey in the context of my own buyer's journey that I went through just a few months ago before COVID shut us down. So I bought a gym membership. Now, again, I didn't just wake up and decide that I should join a gym. The first thing that happened is nothing. I was unaware. Perhaps I fit the ideal demographics of a gym, but I was not in need of that service at that time. And so I was in this unaware stage. Demographics, sure, they're great for our buyer personas, but ultimately they mean nothing unless there is a need for the product or service. But what changed? What changed, taking me from the unaware stage to put me on the path of purchase, was actually a triggering event. And so in May of last year, I actually participated in an athletic competition called the Highland Games. And if you're not familiar with the Highland Games, basically it's a Scottish heavy athletic sport that is really predicated on feats of strength and also centripetal force. So maybe you remember the movie Braveheart when they're tossing the large stones similar to shot put, or perhaps you've seen kind of the caricature of the large Scottish buff guy throwing the giant log. Those are typical Highland Games events. And in May, I actually found myself competing, which was an amazing experience. But it served as a triggering event because I was seeing all of these other athletes and the numbers that they were putting up and the feats of strength that they were performing. And I thought to myself, wow, I have something that needs to be solved here. I want to improve my numbers and get stronger so I can show up to the next competition and beat my personal records. And so that's when I entered the pain/problem aware stage. A triggering event happened in my life that put me on the path to researching solutions. So I think the statistic is between 60 and 70% of consumers now go online to find the answers to their problems. And that's where blogging comes in. When I went online and I was looking for ways to get stronger, I suddenly became aware of solutions. So maybe it could be hire a personal trainer. Maybe it could be buy some free weights. It could have been join a gym. This stage, I was identifying potential solutions to my problem so that I could meet my end goal of getting stronger. I didn't know which solution I was going to choose yet. And some of the solutions that I was considering are obviously not direct competitors to joining a gym, but they are indirect competitors. So, whether a gym likes it or not, it's very possible that I could have gone down the path of, buying a new gym equipment and installing it in my own home versus going with a membership with them. So the solution aware stage is really identifying the actual solution that the consumer is going to go with. Once the solution is identified, then it becomes a provider conversation. Say I chose to join a gym for the many benefits that gyms offer me. Now I have to decide which provider do I go with to administer my solution. Is it going to be Planet Fitness? Is it going to be Anytime Fitness? Is it going to be Gold's Gym? So ultimately, I am looking at direct competitors in the gym space. And so all of this encompasses the buyer's journey. The pain or problem aware stage is really the awareness stage of the buyer's journey because they are aware that they have something that needs to be solved. The consideration stage is when they are considering solutions to their problems. And the provider aware stage is the decision stage where they are deciding on a provider to go with. Now, then the question becomes in marketing, the age-old question, how do we attract and engage our target buyers so that they become customers? And blogging's role in this process is getting them in the early stages of that journey to position the provider as a resource and help them solve the buyer persona's pain or problem and earn that goodwill. Be that thought leader in the space. So that ultimately becomes why we blog. We're essentially growing our own businesses when we blog by helping our target consumer, our buyer persona, our ideal client. And we're also catching them earlier in the journey. It's a distinct advantage. Imagine a gym who blogged and gave me tips about weight training. I'm aware of that gym before I'm aware of other gyms because I took to the internet earlier in my journey. So that's the thing that we want to keep in mind about blogging. And even from just a numbers standpoint, blogging makes practical sense. Say we have a 5-page website with 20 blog posts. Because Google ranks pages and not websites, that 5-page site with 20 blog posts is 5 times larger and has 5 times the chance of ranking for target keywords than a 5-page site with 0 blog posts. So essentially, each blog post is just one more chance to rank on Google. Now, not everyone is going to become a customer that lands on your blog posts, but it's still just more exposure and more online awareness of your brand. So now, how do we blog? How do we do this in a way that's effective, that serves our target market, and ultimately provides ROI for our businesses? So I kind of break down the process into 3 distinct parts. That's brainstorming the blog topic that we'd be writing about, doing the actual grunt work of writing the post, and then at the end, optimizing it for search engines so that we can get as much exposure as possible. So we'll talk about brainstorming first. If you remember back to talking about the buyer's journey, and I said blogs are ideal for solving our customers' problems earlier in the process. That means when we select blog topics, we want to choose the ones that indicate that they are still exploring their problem. We do not want to choose topics or keywords that indicate they're going to spend money. So for example, in my gym scenario, gym near me would not be an ideal keyword or topic to write a blog post around, because it indicates that the person searching for that phrase is already in the provider aware stage. They don't need any editorial content, to convince them that gyms are the right solution. They really just want to compare providers. So it's not really a good choice for a blog post. However, a keyword or topic such as building strength is an ideal keyword or topic because it indicates that the person searching for that phrase is still exploring solutions. And that's when editorial content or blog content makes a difference. Once you have your keyword / your topic, this is the most important stage, is writing the headline, because headlines are ultimately the starting line. They're the gatekeepers of our content. No one is ever going to read the content inside that you've written unless they've already clicked the headline. And so that is where a lot of our energy must go to ensure that people are even getting to the content that we produce. Now, that seems pretty nebulous. How can we be sure that we can write a great headline? Well, there's a few headline formats that can give us direction. There's 3, in fact. The first one is the how-to. A how-to article essentially appeals to someone who is looking to develop a skill or complete a task related to their pain or problem. And so the how-to style article solves for that problem by providing the steps that they must take in order to get to their end goal. So this is a really, ripe opportunity for creating content. The next headline type that works extremely well for blog content is the question. When someone has, something burning in their mind that they need answered and they take to Google to get it solved, the types of articles that come up address that question. And so a question headline really appeals to searchers who are looking for answers. And that's why this type of content is performs extremely well in organic search. The last headline style, and you may have seen this on social media or BuzzFeed, but it's the list or listicle. Now this, for some reason, humans love making and looking at lists. And they love evaluating options. And that's where the list really shines. So an example here would be 9 weight training exercises for women beginners. If I, on my journey, wanted to do weight training exercises before joining a gym, or maybe even I'm looking for weight training exercises to do at the gym, a list of these exercises would be extremely helpful. Now, one tip with lists is that, there's a certain psychological trick that you can do is write lists that have an odd number of items. For example, 7 or 9 or 14, rather than something neat and tidy like 5 or 10. And the reason why is that it sticks in someone's mind easier, and it also seems more authentic. Even with the headline formats, it can be difficult to know whether or not you're writing a great headline. And that's why I recommend this tool. It's actually usually an animation, so forgive that it's not firing, but hopefully it will fire when you get the slides. This is a free headline analyzer by coschedule.com. You do have to opt in order to access it. Just hand them over your email address. But once you do, it's a handy tool that essentially evaluates your headline and gives you suggestions like add more power words, add more emotion to it. And, that can be really helpful as you're exploring the types of headlines that you create and even iterating multiple headlines to find the best one. Keep in mind, though, that it is a tool. And like any tool, it takes good judgment to use, but it's still an extremely helpful resource. Now, once that's over, you know what you're writing about. And so then comes the heavy but extremely rewarding work of writing the blog post itself. So I have a few large tips that I'd like to deposit with you, as well as some really specific tactical things that I want you all to take away with. So first is that blog content's role in marketing is to attract our target buyer. We want to bring them into our website. And the number one mistake that I see when businesses attempt to blog for the first time is they just create blog content that, serves what they want the reader to know. And I don't think that's the best approach in a lot of cases. Ultimately, the blog is a honeypot and not a megaphone, meaning we shouldn't be telling readers what we want them to know. We should be writing around what they want to discover. Basically, the blog should be a magnet rather than a platform. And so with that in mind, thinking through what are the pains our buyers are experiencing, what stages are they at in their life, what problems do they need solved, and what burning questions do they have as they solve those problems. Those are really the essence of what makes a blog tick. The second thing is to be the best resource out there. Google, its number one job is to return the best resource for the person who's making the query. And so if you create a blog content that's, say, 500 words, and your competitor creates a blog content that's 1,500 words, more in depth, includes images and original data, ultimately Google is going to see the latter one as being more valuable, and Google will rank it higher. And so whenever you create content, if you want ROI, you should really be evaluating what's already out there and how you can take your content to the next level, because it's all about serving the buyer persona and serving the buyer persona in the best way. Next is that people's behavior online, especially as they're doing research, tends to be quick. They skim things. They look for, the specific part of the article that they need. They scan. They have short attention spans. So with that in mind, we want to create our content to be as aesthetic and easily digestible as possible. So instead of meeting your website visitor with a large wall of text, we want to create content that has headings and bullets and images, basically things that are easily skimmed for the information that the reader needs. Now that those broad tips are over, we're going to talk about some really tactical things that can make a difference within your blog post. And the first one is writing an introductory paragraph. The introductory paragraph, after they've clicked on the headline, is the first thing that your reader is going to see. And so, one thing that you can do is indicate to them that they're in the right place by appealing to their emotions and pain points right away. So for example, I have a sample text. As an athlete, you're constantly looking to improve, but it can be difficult to figure out how with all the conflicting information out there. So there's a few elements, even in this one paragraph, that I wrote off the top of my head for an imaginary blog post. Number one, it's calling me out, athlete. If I'm an athlete and I read that first paragraph, I know I'm in the right spot. Two, I'm constantly looking to improve. That is a pain point, as evidenced from my most recent competition. And three, it can be difficult to figure out how, because in the health and wellness space, there are a ton of people with opinions, and how am I as a consumer to know which are the right ones that I should follow? So it's appealing to my emotions, my desire to get better. It's calling out that I'm in the right spot, and it's acknowledging where I am in my buyer's journey. And those are a few things that you can do in your introductory paragraph to really resonate with your buyer persona. Similarly, the conclusion is just as important. Now, when you go and pay your rent, the person who's collecting your rent probably wants you to pony up cash. With that in mind, driving traffic for traffic's sake doesn't pay the bills, right? So you can't go and pay your rent and say, well, I had 10,000 visitors to my website. Is that good enough currency? Most of the time it's not. And so when we want ROI from our content, we want content that actually makes a difference to our bottom line and our marketing efforts. We have to make sure that we're converting that traffic into leads. And I think, in school, we were taught that a good conclusion summarizes the points that we made in our essays. That's not the case in blogging. Because the blog targets people early in their buyer's journey when they're not ready to buy yet, we also want the blog to move them further along in their journey. So you can do that by writing a good conclusion that moves the reader further along. For example, let's say, I had a blog article that was, the top 9 mistakes that beginner women athletes make. Well, I would want to pivot in my conclusion to say, now here's the next steps. So here's what you can do, and then send them to another piece of content or a call to action. So a call to action functions as an additional piece of content that the reader must provide their email address in order to access. And what that does is it creates a lead. No longer are they an anonymous website visitor, but they are someone who is interested in the content that you provide, and then you can nurture them further along their journey with other tactics such as email marketing or retargeting. Now, in a blog post, a content offer or a CTA, call to action, looks kind of like this, a little banner. you click it, and it would take you to, another page where you opted to receive that content. So always make sure that you're telling the reader specifically what to do next. Because if you don't ask them for an action, they probably won't perform an action. All right, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty tactical stuff. Blog post structure. So heading tags are these little bracketed things right here. H1, that stands for heading 1. H2, that stands for heading 2. H3, heading 3, and so on. This little tiny bit of code, and usually if you're using WordPress or the HubSpot CMS or any number of website creators, you'll be able to do this in a WYSIWYG or a text formatter. But the code looks like this. And what heading tags do is they provide structure to a website. So this might manifest on the page as this. This is a heading 2. This is a heading 3. And so it adds that aesthetic element that I was mentioning earlier in this presentation, but it also provides structure and that's a structure that Google can read. So for example, Google knows that things that are in the heading tags are important. This is what the content is actually about. So here are a few things to keep in mind with heading tags. Number 1, there's only going to be one H1 per post. It's kind of like a book. A book only has one title. A blog post only has one title, and that title manifests as the H1 on your page. Now you can have any number of H2s and H3s on the page. A best practice for H2s would be to use a primary keyword in one of your H2s. It's signaling to the reader that they are on the page that they thought they were on. And it's also signaling to Google, this is what the content is about. So rather than using your headings for aesthetic, non-keyword related content and potentially confusing, you would want to be very tactical about the wording that you use in your headings. Your H3s are going to manifest as supporting points. It's not as dire to include keywords in H3s, but you can, depending on your strategy. But also include secondary and semantic keywords in H2s and H3s as appropriate. And again, this just provides form to your content in an easy way that Google can then read and know what your content is about and essentially how to rank you when someone is searching for this stuff. So let's say you've written your blog post, you followed all of the great tips, you know it's the best resource that there is, and it's formatted correctly on the page. Now we want to optimize it for search engines. Now notice that I include this step last. The reason why is because content should really be created for humans. It should not be created for search engines first. With that said, once it is created for humans, there are definitely some things that we can do to improve our chances of ranking in search. So if you have ever performed a search, you may have seen search engine results pages with listings that look just like this. Now, here's the anatomy. This blue text right here is the headline of your blog post, the thing that you might have created much earlier in this process. If set up right, that is where your blog post title is going to go, is this blue text. And that's what I meant when I said that someone first has to click your headline before they read your content. This is what they'd be clicking on. Well, in addition to email and social media. One best practice that I didn't mention though, is that you should really include the primary keyword in the title. It it improves the likelihood that someone will click on it since it's more relevant to their search, but it also improves the likelihood that Google will rank it for that keyword. In addition, the text up at the top is the URL. The best practice here is to create as short and concise of a URL as possible, but also include your primary keyword in the URL. The text at the bottom is called a meta description. And what the meta description's role is to advertise the content that the reader is about to get when they click the title. So it's advertising the content that you've written, and in that way supports the headline. A best practice is to include the keyword in the meta description. Now, this isn't a ranking factor. This isn't a Google thing. But if your keyword is in the meta description, again, it makes it more relevant for the person who's doing the searching to know that your article is going to satisfy their need. And if a higher percentage of people click your article versus other articles on the SERPs, your ranking will improve because Google will then see that your resource is valuable and helping people. So basically, the long story of the slide is to maximize your chance of appealing to the person who's searching, practicing good, SEO best practices, and increasing the chance that the user will click so that you can move up in the SERPs. On page, now I mentioned the H2s. That's definitely, a consideration for optimizing your posts, but another consideration is your images. One of the #1 ranking factors is actually page speed. And with that in mind, we want to do as much as we can to optimize our images for speed, which means, if possible, any images that you include on your blog post should be compressed to less than 150 kilobytes. And I would even say go further. 100 or less is really ideal for pages that load quickly. And when your page loads quickly, that signals to Google, this website has a really good experience and is a really good experience for the people who are searching. In addition, images have an invisible code behind them called alt text. What alt text does is it describes what the image is. This is helpful for screen readers, accessibility for anyone who is visually impaired, who is accessing your website, but also Google search engine crawlers. So when Google crawls your page, it doesn't see your content, it sees your code. And so it can't see your images. So one best practice is to include your primary keyword in your alt text so that it's one more thing that's making your blog post relevant for the target keywords that you're wanting to rank for. And Google then knows that not only is the blog post about this topic, but the images are also about this topic. And it signals that the whole blog post is about that topic. And for that reason, it just makes it all the more relevant. When it comes to search engine optimization, relevance is just one of two key important factors. With that said, that concludes my presentation. There are a couple things that I want to leave you with. The first one is a free download from HubSpot. Gotta rep, our free downloads. But there's a how to start a successful blog guide that includes a planner and a free checklist that can help you out. You can download it at the link provided on the slide when these slides are sent out. But that'll kind of give you, a concrete takeaway that you can follow as you're putting these practices in place for the first time if you've never written a blog before. The next thing is I did just want to touch on HubSpot very briefly. HubSpot, again, is an entire platform that includes marketing, sales, and customer service tools. They have a number of free tools that you do not have to pay for, including their free CRM, where you can manage contacts, contact information, as well as free marketing and sales and service tools. In addition, their paid hubs, for example, the paid marketing hub, just has a fantastic tool sets that, are pretty much unmatched in the industry, in my opinion. And that's not just because I work for HubSpot, but was also a HubSpot customer before this role. So I've been, an evangelist of HubSpot since 2015. I really think that their user experience is just unparalleled. And so the Marketing Hub includes, CMS, tools for blogging, tools for lead generation, and just so many others. So definitely visit the HubSpot Marketing Hub link provided on this slide and just check out what they have and see if it meets your needs. That's pretty much it. I'm going to leave it on this slide, and I'm ready to take questions if my wonderful hosts are.
All right, that was awesome. That was a lot of information crammed into a short period of time. So let me get started with a couple of questions. So the number one takeaway I think that I got from you was that if I make the decision to start a blog as part of my marketing campaign, I just don't start writing random stuff. I mean, it takes intense planning before you even write the first word. Is that right?
Yes, I would say so. Where I would begin is understand who your ideal client is, create a buyer persona, and understand their buyer's journey, and then you can map your content to meet those stages of the buyer's journey.
So do you recommend, or let me say, do you, as part of your process, do you schedule a topic schedule for so many months in advance, or what's the next step there once I have my persona in mind?
Yeah, so you can do it by campaigns if you'd like. So perhaps you come up with several topics around, one central theme, or you can just come up with, as many like FAQ questions that you can, that your persona has, and just start knocking them out. Really, it does depend on the capacity of your business. This is definitely a labor-intensive marketing tactic. But the more that you do it, the more it pays dividends for your website, both in, driving the actual traffic, but also establishing authority and giving you content to promote on social media channels and email. So really, even though it is labor intensive, it can be, used cross-functionally. So those are the considerations that, I would put in when, creating a campaign.
Yeah, excellent. Just a little aside, I was working with a guy that his company, they produce, chemical polymers, and he wanted to start a blog. And so I started reading, and his blog posts were mainly like what he did in the morning to get ready for work and have a good day sort of thing, and just like random musings. So that's not the idea at all. I mean, you have to have a purpose as you work through this process. Yeah.
There are blogs out there, that are, sort of lifestyle blogs. Some businesses use blogs in different ways. But in terms of driving traffic and driving leads, it definitely should be targeted to, a specific purpose. And so ultimately, I think that's the best purpose for a blog, but others might use their blogs differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's the number one tip to get started, a writing tip?
Writing tip. Yes. So for me, and even though I'm a trained editor and have editorial experience, that's where I started my career. I would say that it's less about grammar and more about voice and understanding your reader so that you can appeal to them. So I think, as humans, our tendency is to worry about the optics and be perfectionists when it comes to blogging, but really it should be about emotion and being resonant. And so, definitely, I suppose, approach the empty pad of paper or the empty Word doc with that perspective in mind.
Tony, do you have any questions? I'm sorry I was hogging all the questions there because I'm really interested in this. So.
Yeah, you were hogging all the time, man, but that's okay. Amanda, your content was excellent. I mean, I learned so much, so thank you for sharing it. So I have a couple of questions here. One is from she just actually started her business, like completely just registered it. Okay. And she wants to know, do you have any suggestions about how to blog for my store that sells apparel and wall art?
Yeah. So, going back to the buyer's journey, thinking about the unaware stage, someone just getting up for bed is probably not going, I need apparel, I need wall art. Ultimately, I would say that it sort of appeals to like a decor, style of topic. So I would, if it was me, I would probably blog around like 10 tips to brighten a room, or, 12 things you didn't know about feng shui, or, different like decor / lifestyle topics, and then position your products within the blog post as a list item, or maybe in the sidebar. But basically bring people in with that broader idea and then position your products as a solution to that idea.
Thank you. So I've got a couple more questions for you. This one is, does a call to action have to be long form content? Sarah says she writes for a business for a small sports headband company, and she can't think of what they could offer in the long form content on that it would be more tangent to the company, so to speak.
Yeah, of course. For a headband, I would say that the buyer's journey is not long. So when you're providing an ebook or you're providing a tip sheet, this is more suited for businesses that have a longer buyer's journey with far more consideration points along the way. So in terms of blogging, what I would do there is, instead of providing, a call to action that's, an ebook of some kind, I would probably position a coupon there, or I don't know about a free sample, or but I've seen other apparel brands doing. I think Pop Fit does like one free set of leggings to get people as leads, and then to market them more leggings after they got the free set. And they've become an evangelist because they got this free set of leggings, and they're good leggings, to try and get that repeat business. So like, I would think about different offers that you can do, whether that's, a coupon, or, just something that provides value to compel them to exchange their information and become a lead.
Okay. Thank you. We have a few questions here asking about, how much does HubSpot charge for writing a blog post for a client?
HubSpot is not an agency. HubSpot So HubSpot would not be the provider to would not be a provider of blog post writing. HubSpot is a software platform. So it would be, you know, if you didn't have a website already, you didn't have a blog already, you would put your content on HubSpot as the platform. However, HubSpot does have a number of HubSpot agency partners. These are people who are, I don't want to say certified, but in many cases, yes, partners of HubSpot. So they are marketing strategists, they're blog writers, all sorts of that can be found on the HubSpot marketplace. And they know how to use HubSpot, and they also know how to, you know, apply marketing principles within the HubSpot ecosystem. And so I would definitely check out the HubSpot agency partners resource, and then start querying, you know, those agencies for blog writing services.
Okay.
I got a quick question here, Amanda. So once you create a web or a blog post, I'm assuming you can repurpose that content in a number of different ways. I mean, what would you recommend to do with one blog post so they can use it more than once?
Yeah, you know, there are so many possibilities with blog content. It's really quite exceptional. So in theory, like a perfect blog post has a number of different elements to keep website visitors on the page for as long as possible. That could be graphics, that could be an embedded video, that could be an infographic. So you can actually promote the blog post multiple times over the course of, let's say, a year, but maybe you're using one of your graphics to promote it. Maybe you're promoting the infographic that's on the post another time, or you're promoting the video with a link to the post. Maybe you created a listicle that has, you know, 9 tips, and you make each of those tips a different slide in a slide share and post it on LinkedIn. So, you know, there's just like so many options that you can do, especially because blog post is long form content. So you can create smaller bite-sized content from it.
Thank you. Tony?
Sure. Excuse me. Amanda, one of our listeners, they noted that you stated that the blog post should contain original data if possible, and they were just wondering if you could expand on what you actually meant by that.
Yeah, so original data, let me back up here. So in the point of the presentation that I was making was that you want to provide a better resource than what other people have. So it's not always possible to provide original data, certainly. And sometimes, you know, if a particular statistic is circulated across, you know, multiple blog posts, it doesn't really provide any extra information that other blog posts don't already have. So one tactic that many bloggers use is to, you know, run surveys or use their own unique industry expertise to provide a unique and more valuable angle than other blog posts that are on the search engine results page. And usually statistic heavy posts tend to be stickier, meaning that people are more likely to share them because it has quantitative analysis. People are more likely to link to those blog posts just because it has that element of research and you know, data-driven content. It's not always possible. Sometimes you're writing a qualitative piece that data doesn't even make sense. And maybe you don't have access to data, in which case you would take a different approach to create the best resource out there.
Okay, thank you. Do you have time for some more questions? I have a few more left.
Oh yeah, I have time.
Okay, good. Okay, so Stephen wants to know, when do we know if the blog should be written in first person or third person?
That is purely brand preference. Yep. It shouldn't matter too much to your reader in that, you know, there is a certain sort of style that you want to convey according to your blog. So if you're a solopreneur and you're wanting to do thought leadership that's around your personal brand, it is totally okay to use first person. Whereas if you're an organization and you're really kind of doing a more sort of broader thought leadership, it's okay to do third. So it really depends on your own voice, the tone that you want to convey to your readers, and your goals for writing the piece.
Okay, so this question you may have already responded to, but I just wanted to make sure that that Marilyn gets an answer. How often do you recommend publishing a blog?
So there's been lots of studies done on this with sort of varying best practices. But my sort of guideline is this. The more you blog, the more you will get out of blogging. However, it is a marketing tactic that is going to drive traffic, but maybe not as much revenue. So if you're in the early stages of your company where revenue is extremely important, your efforts and marketing dollars might be better suited towards the sort of bottom of the funnel activities such as paid ads, social media ads, to get your stuff in front of people quickly and so that they, so that it makes a sale. Blogging is a long-term strategy, on the other hand. It will provide probably more ROI over the course of its lifetime because once you create it, all you have to do is update it once in a while, and it will continue to perform versus advertising that you constantly have to put dollars into. However, again, those leads that you get from your blog are going to be earlier in the process. They need more nurturing. Some of them may not ever, come to a close. So ultimately, you have to decide, what's right for your business, how much you want to blog, versus like how much you want to invest in other harder hitting bottom of the funnel marketing strategies.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions. There's two of them that's coming from Monica. She wants to know, how do we measure SEO of sites? Could you suggest any tool for it?
Yes, absolutely. So two things. Number one, Google Analytics. Google Analytics, you put a code on your website, and Google Analytics will track the demographics of who came to your website, where they came from, as in which channel. Did they come from organic search? Did they come from paid ads? Did they come from social media? It will track the actions that they took on the website, and with a little bit of setting up, even conversion rate, if you define what a conversion is and what goals you want them to complete. It'll say, out of this many visitors, this many converted. So Google Analytics will give you a good pulse on the health of your site in general. Two would be for the actual search engine presence, and that's Google Search Console. And that's not a code, but you do have to verify that you own your site in order to use this tool. And it will give you an idea of where are you ranking, how many people saw your blog post or your page on search engines, how many people clicked on it, etc. So Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and then whatever analytics tool your own website CMS has. So for example, HubSpot, if your website and blog is on HubSpot, there are, really great analytics tools built into the system as well. So those are the three.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know that Sarah's wanting to tell you thank you, because she said she's taken the HubSpot courses on blogging, and she said she's been driving herself nuts trying to figure out what's the call to action. She was the headband company, so thank you so much. The second question that Monica has is, can she use long tail keywords in meta tags?
So meta tags are sort of an outdated SEO strategy. A lot of search engines no longer recognize them or really read them or count them as a ranking factor. Really, you would want to include your keywords in the title tag, the URL, your heading tags, and your alt tags. Those ones are really the harder hitting ones. While there are search engines that still look at meta tags overall, it's not Google, and it's not many of them anymore.
Okay. My next question comes from Everett. I know that you had mentioned HubSpot has some blogging agencies, or that some potential blogging agencies. He's wanting to know if there's other resources where he can find ghost blogging consultants.
Yes, there are third-party content providers out there. There are many. Many of them are actually also HubSpot partners in some way. The thing that I would, want you to take away, though, is that these are freelance writers who don't know as much about your brand. And they don't know as much about your buyer. They're great writers. So I would definitely, to save on time, using a third-party content provider is extremely helpful. But I would also, take it with a grain of salt and do your best to add your own unique brand and flavor to the content that you receive back from these agencies. But there are a number of them. Express Writers is one, Writer Access, Clear Voice, Text Broker. There are many out there, these third-party content agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask something quickly, Tony. So on that same note, if you're not a very good writer, I mean, would it be helpful to maybe hire one of these writers as an editor to punch up your text? Would you recommend that?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
I have one last question for you. It comes from Angela. She says, can you speak more about embedded video?
Embedded video, yes. So basically the idea there is the longer that someone spends, the longer the amount of time that someone spends consuming your content on the page, the better the signals are to Google that that content is helpful and relevant to the searcher. So you want people to spend time on your site, even not related to SEO. You want people to spend time on your site. And so video is just a great way to, number one, the time it takes to watch the video, but number two, also explain concepts in a different way. Some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners, so they don't consume text as well. And video provides just another multimedia element on your blog post to engage them. And basically, you can create a video, you can upload it to YouTube and pull the embed code off of YouTube and put it in your blog post.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So I guess it's about time to wrap up. I have one last little question, just a writing question. So would you share with us maybe your best brainstorming tip on content?
Yes, absolutely. I spend time on Google. So I want to get familiar with, what people are searching for. And how I can do that is actually taking a look at what comes up in the autocomplete when I type something in, what comes up in the related searches, what are other people blogging about, and what are people referring to on social media even. And by spending time in the ecosystem, I can then go, okay, now what can I add to it as a thought leader? around this topic, and what are, my competitors missing? Sometimes a little, a little controversial edge is good for content. So I would just, understand that the content you produce isn't in a vacuum. There's a whole ecosystem out there, and it all comes down to what you want to add to it.
Thank you. Any more questions, Tony?
No more questions. Amanda, you were awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for all of your insight. We truly appreciate you.
Yeah, second that. This was really good. I took a bunch of notes, and I'm going to watch the replay again. It was really good. So I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today. This has been so super helpful, and I hope you'll come back and join us again sometime soon.
That sounds great.
Let's get that set up soon. I know from some of the chat comments, I think people would like to see you again. So let's do that. So with that, I guess we're going to wrap up today. Amanda, thank you very much. Tony, as always, I'll see you soon. And Janet.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. And as a
Bye,
reminder, you'll get the slides and a replay later on in your email today. So look for that and watch often. And let us know if we can help you out. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.